Good morning, good afternoon, good evening, folks. Michael Zuber, one rental at a time, back with his Wednesday expert, the one and only Anna Kelly. Hi, Anna.
Hi, good morning.
Good morning. Good morning. So my channel knows there's kind of two people that I will read the articles or watch the interviews if they're in the headline, right, or the title. That is obviously Warren Buffett. It's kind of the first guy that got me interested in stocks. And now of late, Bridgewater, I think it's Bridgewater Capital, Ray Dalio, right?
Yes.
Ray Dalio wrote
Another billionaire.
Another billionaire. Oh, he wrote a book called Principles that really caught my attention. I think that was 5 or 6 years ago. And I've been a fan ever since. And I don't know if you know, but Ray Dalio just wrote a brand new book, which I got delivered 2 days ago, The Changing World Order.
This is funny. We didn't even plan this, Michael. We didn't even plan this.
I just got hilarious.
Hey, great minds think alike.
Yeah. Have you cracked it open yet?
I have not. I just looked at, oh my goodness, look how big this is.
It's going to be nice write small books. Yeah, Ray Dalio. Oh my goodness. Yeah,
he's a smart man. He's a smart man.
Yeah, he's very smart. So what we're going to do is the next two videos are going to be dedicated to Ray Dalio, because really, Anna, first off, if you're not following Anna on Facebook, you're missing out. She put out another wonderful post, this one talking about things that we need to look at and really quoting Ray Dalio. So number one is kind of the 5 things that can have outsized impacts on the economy. So I thought we should talk about that on each one of those and kind of talk what you and I think. And then video number 3 is going to be the 6 things that we could do about it. So
yeah,
let's start with those first 5.
Yeah, absolutely. We've been talking a lot about, what becoming a student of the economy and really learning what kind of things can impact you financially that you don't even see coming, that have nothing to do with the investment decisions that you make in a box, right? And so, we've talked about living through the Great Recession. I lived through the Great Recession, and I had a lot of experience in finance and real estate and insurance and traditional investments, and thought I really knew a lot. And it was the things that I didn't know about the intricacies and complexities of the financial system that took down the US economy in 2009 and that rocked my world and made me realize, you know what? I work for the biggest, one of the biggest companies in the country, and I really didn't know anything about credit default swaps, for example, right? But I learned at that point that although I had done all the right things to try to set myself up to make financially wise decisions, living below our means, like we've talked about, expanding our means, like we've talked about, I didn't know anything about the economy aside from supply and demand drives everything. That's all I knew. So I knew at that point, when we were losing everything in 2009, I better become a student of economics and understand the outside factors that can impact the economy and the fact that I need to make better decisions based on those factors, right? So I started thinking about those things a lot in the last couple of years. Is how do we predict what's coming? Is it mass inflation? Is it recession, deflation? And how does that impact our real estate portfolios, right? So I've been thinking about some of these factors, like all the political unrest here and abroad. And the challenges over, do we go toward socialism, globalism, or do we go toward nationalism and, consumerism, basically capitalism, wars and threats of wars with Russia and China going after these other countries, and then monetary policy, obviously, and just some of the disruptors that sometimes happen, like in the Industrial Revolution, and then you have the tech revolution, and now we're talking AI, right? And metaverse and Bitcoin, and all those things are disruptors. So I've been thinking about each one of those things and thinking, if these things happen, how will it impact my investments and what I do to grow wealth and to preserve wealth, right? So I saw this interview pop up. I think it was CNBC a few days ago with Ray Dalio, and he was talking about the 5 things in history that he looks at that are major economic disruptors that impact how he and his companies invest in every sector, right? Because they impact everything, not just real estate, not just the markets. And it was really interesting. And I thought, okay, there's someone else thinking about this that's much smarter and wealthier than me. I want to hear what he has to say. So I heard the interview, I bought the book. So the 5 things that he talked about, that when you look at history, you see repeats of patterns of 5 major things that consistently make major economic shifts. One of them is financial policy, which we just talked about in video number 1, putting credit out there, making credit flow more easily or tightening up, and raising interest rates and putting money into the system. The second thing is the wealth gap. The wealth gap causes a lot of internal and political conflict because it's this constant battle between the rich and the poor. How do we help and elevate the poor without taking everything from the rich, or do we? And so those things create conflict interpersonally, but also politically, because they impact taxation and they impact what we spend money on. The third thing is power conflict. Countries going after other countries for greater power, greater national power or greater global power. And we're seeing a lot of that today. The fourth thing is the power of inventiveness, is what he calls it. Those economic shifts like the Industrial Revolution, like the tech revolution. And the fifth one, I never really thought about from a national or global perspective, but it's these 1 in 100-year events. Well, I'm only 47, so I thought the Great Recession was the 1 in 100-year event, right? And then the pandemic proved to be the 1 in 100-year event. But these natural disasters or economic disasters that happen, can create major impact and economic shifts nationally, locally, regionally, and globally. So those are the key 5.
Yeah, and there's, again, I think we saw the same interview and probably bought the book the same day. That's hilarious that we have the book next to it.
It is. Yeah, we don't get paid for this. We did not plan this.
Not at all. It's just, hey, I bought a book. Yeah. When I think about the 5 things, because for me, it's always been about the consumer. And again, Ray Dalio is somebody far smarter than I. I've been doing this a lot longer. He plays at a level that I can only dream of. But when I look at these 5 things and I think about my world, the consumer, right? So the first one, financial policy, that one kind of fits, right? We see, you and I have seen that just in our investing career, when money is easy versus money is tight. We've seen banks not lend and then lend to everyone.
Yes.
We talked about in the first episode about a rate cycle. So I think you and I kind of get that one, but the other 4, it's like, wow, like the wealth gap. It's never been this bad, at least in my lifetime.
Right.
Again, Ray Dalio, just so folks know, when Ray Dalio talks about history, he's not only talking about American history, right? He's going back to the Roman Empire and all these other things, right? So again, when you hear Ray Dalio talk about history, he's not talking about since 1776, right? He's going back and looking at all nations.
Right. And there's been conflict between rich and poor, since the beginning of time. And so, and it never lets up, but at times in history, it really becomes heightened and can shift what happens. And one of the things that's really important for us, I think, as real estate investors to think about 2 things. One is when there are economic crashes, there is not so much people lose everything. Wealth continues to go up globally, but it's transferred. And the more you have, the more likely you will get more wealth when things crash. And the less you have, the less, the more all your stuff will be taken away. So it creates a lot of political conflict. And as a landlord, we own properties and we're looked at as these big, rich, not very nice people. And when inflation happens, the way that I'm thinking about this today is when inflation happens, and I'm getting letters every week from a contractor, from a supplier saying, we're so sorry, but we're going to have to really raise your expenses. I have no choice but to raise rents. And at some point that impacts, the American and those people that are renting from me significantly. And I don't like that. I have a heart for people, but as our expenses go up, we have no choice but to raise rents. And so we're going to have more conflict interpersonally with tenants, landlords versus tenants, or the management companies with the tenants, because of that perception that, we're just money hungry. But when economies change, you've got to continue to raise expenses. And ultimately, it's the poorer people that are the most impacted by these shifts, unfortunately.
Yeah. And then the other one that really, it's funny, I did a video, it might've been the same day I saw Ray Dalio's video. I'm not sure if it was the day before or not, but this Russia and Ukraine, China and Taiwan, that is, that's something that will throw a monkey wrench into everything. If either of those go and it goes poorly or badly or whatever you want to call it.
And Iran and Jerusalem.
Iran
and Israel. They've just came out and said, death to Israel again. So there's 3 major potential conflicts. And what happens if America's pulled into war?
I don't want to think about it.
Right. I don't either.
Yeah. But we have to.
Right.
I don't want to think about it.
Right.
Yeah, and then the power of inventiveness, right? I live in the Silicon Valley. I saw the internet be birthed, or at least taken mainstream. AI, right? I work in big data, and AI is a big part of that. So, yeah, where does this go? It's just started. The metaverse is, Facebook's like 5 miles that way.
Right.
Yeah, it's interesting. So again,
Yeah.
for me and Ray Dalio, I'm trying to read this book before the end of the year. It's a pretty big book, but yeah,
Me too. We should have a race.
oh yeah. Oh my God, I don't want to race with Anna. Anna's going to crush me.
Oh God. But it is, as investors, we think, okay, what's the so what? Like the so what is be aware that these things could happen and they could create some hardship. And we need to be thinking about how do we protect our assets and our income and preserve what we have, and think about diversifying in some way that one or two of these events isn't going to totally wipe us out, right? The other thing is I think of what types of properties do I want to buy, and what could these things do to consumerism and what people want in terms of housing. So when we think of, just look at the disruption from the pandemic that really accelerated technology and work from home and Zoom and these types of things. If people don't need to go into the office, is there a continued flight away from urban to suburban that lasts, and how long? And do people want bigger apartments so that they can have a home office? Do they want smaller homes so that they kind of reduce their living expenses as their kids move out? So these are the kind of things that I'm thinking about when I look at these 5 categories. It's how does that impact me as an investor? How does it impact what I'm choosing to buy now, not only for income and upside, but is this a time that we need to focus mostly on asset preservation, and then income secondary and growth third? For me, it is. Everybody's in a different place, but I think we need to think through these things and go, don't just buy everything with just this tiny little view of where we are today, but look at how can these things that we see happening in the global economy and the global political world and power struggles, how can they impact us over the next 5 to 10 years? And what kind of investments do I make to keep myself balanced in case those things happened?
Oh, next year is going to be so much fun. So Anna, how can people follow you and see what you're doing?
Great. You can always find me here every single Wednesday. We have so much fun together. We have a playlist. And you can find me at Facebook, LinkedIn, and Instagram at Anna REI Mom Kelly. My website's reimom.com. And if you're interested in passive investing in large apartment communities where we make an impact on our residents, you can find me there at greaterpurposecapital.com.
Very cool. Thanks, Anna.
Thank you.